They say that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, but they've never met a devoted father who discovers that his wife has been destroying his family from the inside. My name is James Patterson, and this is the story of how I learned that the woman I trusted with my heart, my home, and my children had been systematically betraying everything I held sacred, and how I used her own selfishness and recklessness to ensure she lost everything she thought she could take from me. I'm 43 years old, and until 10 months ago, I believed I was living the life I'd always dreamed of having. I was married to my college sweetheart, Michelle, and we had two beautiful children, Emma, who was 14, and Jake, who was 11. We lived in a comfortable suburban home in Denver, Colorado, where I worked as a project manager for a construction company and Michelle worked part-time as a dental hygienist. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. We attended our children's school events together, took family vacations every summer, and seemed to have the kind of stable, loving relationship that other couples admired. I coached Jake's little league team, Emma was on the honor roll, and Michelle was involved in the PDA and various school fundraising activities. Michelle was everything I'd fallen in love with in college, beautiful, intelligent, and seemingly devoted to our family. She had long blonde hair and bright blue eyes that could light up a room, and she'd maintained the same athletic figure that had first caught my attention when we were both 20 years old. She was a wonderful mother who never missed a school play, a soccer game, or a parent-teacher conference. Our marriage had weathered the usual challenges that come with raising children and building careers. We'd struggled financially in the early years, worked through the stress of sleepless nights with newborns, and navigated the complexities of balancing work and family life. But through it all, we'd remained committed to each other and to providing a stable, loving home for Emma and Jake. I took pride in being a devoted husband and father. I worked hard to provide for my family, but I also made sure to be present for the important moments in my children's lives. I helped with homework, attended every game and recital, and made sure that Emma and Jake knew they could count on me for anything they needed. Michelle seemed to appreciate my dedication to our family. She would often tell friends how lucky she was to have a husband who was so involved with the children and so committed to making our marriage work. She would post photos of our family activities on social media with captions about how grateful she was for our life together. But what I didn't realize was that Michelle's public displays of family devotion were masking the most devastating betrayal I could have imagined. The first sign that something was wrong came during what should have been a happy time for our family. Emma had just been accepted into the advanced placement program at her high school, and Jake had made the all-star team for his age group in Little League. We were planning a celebration dinner to acknowledge their achievements, and Michelle had seemed excited about recognizing our children's hard work and success. But as the date for our celebration approached, Michelle became increasingly distracted and unavailable. She started working longer hours at the dental office, claiming that they were short-staffed and needed her to take on additional responsibilities. She began making excuses to miss family activities that she'd never missed before, saying she was too tired or had too much work to catch up on. More troubling was the change in Michelle's behavior toward the children and me. She had always been patient and attentive with Emma and Jake, but suddenly she seemed irritated by their normal childhood needs and requests. When I tried to talk to her about family plans or discuss the children's activities, she would become defensive or change the subject entirely. The breakthrough came when I made a discovery that shattered everything I thought I knew about my wife and our marriage. I was looking for our insurance cards in Michelle's purse when I found something that made my blood run cold. Hidden in a side pocket was a hotel key card from a luxury resort about an hour outside of Denver, along with a receipt for a romantic dinner for two at the resort's restaurant. The date on the receipt was from the previous weekend, when Michelle had told me she was attending a continuing education seminar for dental hygienists. I'd stayed home with the children while she was supposedly learning about new dental procedures and networking with other professionals in her field. But the hotel keycard and restaurant receipt told a very different story. I began paying closer attention to Michelle's activities and discovered evidence of the most elaborate deception I'd ever encountered. She had been having an affair for over 18 months with Dr. Kevin Morrison, the dentist who owned the practice where she worked. The affair wasn't just a simple case of workplace attraction that had gotten out of hand. Michelle and Kevin had been conducting a sophisticated relationship that involved regular romantic getaways, expensive gifts, and long-term planning that threatened everything I'd worked to build for our family. I discovered that Michelle had been lying to me about her work schedule for months, claiming she was working extra hours when she was actually spending time with Kevin. They'd been meeting at expensive hotels, taking weekend trips to romantic destinations, and even discussing the possibility of leaving their respective spouses to start a new life together. But what made the betrayal even more devastating was how Michelle's affair was affecting our children. Emma had been asking me why her mother seemed so distant and distracted lately. Jake had mentioned that Michelle seemed angry with him even when he hadn't done anything wrong. Both children had noticed that their mother was less available for their activities and less interested in their achievements and concerns. Michelle was so consumed with her affair that she was neglecting the children who depended on her for love, support, and guidance. She was missing important moments in their lives because she was too busy pursuing her selfish desires with a man who was willing to help her destroy our family. But the most crushing discovery was yet to come. As I investigated further, I realized that Michelle and Kevin weren't just having an affair. They were planning to leave their spouses and create a new life together that would devastate both of our families. Kevin was married to a woman named Sarah, and they had a young son together. Michelle and Kevin had been discussing divorce strategies, custody arrangements, and financial planning that would allow them to abandon their responsibilities to their current families. Michelle was planning to ask for a divorce after our family's summer vacation, using our annual trip as a final gesture before she destroyed our children's sense of security and stability. She was expecting to get custody of Emma and Jake, along with a significant portion of our assets, while she started her new life with Kevin. But what made the betrayal even more personal was how Michelle and Kevin talked about Sarah and me in their communications. Kevin referred to me as Jim the Builder, suggesting that I was too focused on work and providing for my family to notice what was happening in my own home. Michelle called me James the Boring, claiming that I was too predictable and family-focused to keep her interested in our marriage. They were planning to take advantage of the trust that Sarah and I had placed in them, using our marriages and our children as stepping stones to their new relationship while they planned to abandon us to deal with the emotional and financial consequences of their choices. That's when I realized that if Michelle wanted to play games with our family's stability and our children's well-being, I was going to show her what a truly devoted father could accomplish when his children's welfare was threatened. I spent the next 8 weeks conducting the most thorough investigation of my life, using every resource at my disposal to document Michelle and Kevin's affair and build a case that would protect my children and ensure that Michelle faced appropriate consequences for her betrayal of our family. I hired a private investigator to document their activities and gather evidence of their relationship. I installed hidden cameras in our home to record Michelle's communications with Kevin. I consulted with the best family law attorney in Denver to understand my rights and options for protecting Emma and Jake from the disruption Michelle was planning to cause in their lives. More importantly, I began building a comprehensive strategy that would not only expose Michelle's affair, but also ensure that she understood the full consequences of choosing her selfish desires over her responsibilities as a mother and wife. I discovered that Michelle and Kevin had been incredibly reckless in their affair, leaving digital trails and financial evidence that could be easily documented and used against them. They'd been using credit cards to pay for their romantic getaways, storing photos and videos of their encounters on cloud accounts that could be accessed, and even planning their post-divorce life using email accounts that left comprehensive records of their intentions. But Michelle and Kevin had made a critical error in their planning. They had underestimated my love for my children, my understanding of family law, and my determination to protect Emma and Jake from the consequences of their mother's selfish choices. I decided to let Michelle go through with our family vacation while I finalized my plans for the most comprehensive and devastating response I could devise. I wanted her to believe that her deception was working, that I was the oblivious husband she thought I was, right up until the moment I revealed that I knew everything and had been planning to protect our children from her betrayal. The family vacation was surreal in ways that Michelle could never have imagined. She played the role of the loving wife and mother perfectly, taking photos of our family activities, posting them on social media with captions about how much she loved our family time together, and even being more affectionate with the children than she'd been in months. But I knew it was all performance, and I played my part as the grateful, unsuspecting husband and father while I finalized the details of the most comprehensive protection plan I'd ever conceived. While we were having dinner at a family restaurant, I was secretly coordinating with my attorney to finalize custody documents that would protect the children from Michelle's planned disruption of their lives. While we were enjoying family activities at the beach, I was receiving updates from my private investigator about the final pieces of evidence he'd gathered. The confrontation came the evening after we returned from our vacation, during what Michelle thought would be a quiet family dinner before she revealed her plans to destroy our marriage. Michelle had been planning to wait a few days after our return to ask for a divorce, giving herself time to process our wonderful family vacation before she shattered our children's sense of security. She was expecting to control the narrative and the timing of our separation, presenting herself as the victim of an unhappy marriage who deserved sympathy and support. Instead, I had prepared my own revelation that would turn her moment of control into the most devastating exposure of her life. I waited until after Emma and Jake had gone to their rooms to do homework, ensuring that they wouldn't be exposed to the initial confrontation. Then I sat Michelle down in our living room and told her that I had something important to discuss with her about our marriage and our family's future. I began by explaining that I'd recently discovered some information about her activities over the past 18 months that had given me a new perspective on our marriage and on the kind of person she really was. I told her that I'd learned some things about her relationship with Dr. Morrison that I thought she should know I was aware of. Then, without warning, I began presenting evidence of her affair with Kevin. I showed her photos and videos that my private investigator had taken of them together at hotels and restaurants. I presented hotel receipts, credit card statements, and travel confirmations that documented their romantic getaways. I read excerpts from their text messages and emails that detailed their relationship and their plans to leave their spouses. Michelle went white as a sheet and looked like she was going to be sick as the evidence of her betrayal was laid out in front of her. She tried to deny the affair at first, then attempted to minimize it, and finally broke down and admitted that she'd been planning to ask for a divorce. But I wasn't finished with my presentation. I had also prepared comprehensive documentation of how Michelle's affair had been affecting our children and how her planned divorce would disrupt their lives. I explained that I'd noticed Emma's confusion about her mother's distance and Jake's hurt feelings about Michelle's lack of interest in his activities. I presented evidence of how Michelle had been prioritizing her affair over her responsibilities as a mother. More importantly, I revealed that I'd already filed for divorce and had obtained temporary custody orders that would protect Emma and Jake from the disruption Michelle was planning to cause in their lives. I explained that I'd been working with family law attorneys to ensure that the children's best interests would be protected and that Michelle's adultery would be taken into account in custody and financial arrangements. The aftermath was swift and devastating for Michelle, but incredibly protective for our children. Because I had documented Michelle's affair so thoroughly and had demonstrated how it was affecting her ability to prioritize the children's needs, the family court awarded me primary custody of Emma and Jake. Michelle was granted supervised visitation rights initially, with the possibility of expanded visitation if she could demonstrate that she was putting the children's needs ahead of her relationship with Kevin. Michelle's reputation in our community was severely damaged when word of the affair spread through our children's schools and our neighborhood. Other parents questioned her judgment and reliability, and she was asked to step down from her PDA positions and school volunteer roles. Kevin's dental practice suffered significant damage when his affair with an employee became public knowledge. Several patients left his practice, and his professional reputation was tarnished by the scandal. His wife Sarah filed for divorce and was awarded significant financial support and custody of their son. But the most satisfying aspect of my response was how it affected Michelle and Kevin's relationship with each other. The stress of the divorce proceedings, the custody battles, and the social consequences of their affair put enormous strain on their relationship. Without the excitement of secrecy and the thrill of forbidden romance, their relationship quickly deteriorated into blame and resentment. Kevin blamed Michelle for being careless with evidence and for not considering the professional consequences of their affair. Michelle blamed Kevin for not being strong enough to handle the social and legal consequences of their choices. Within 6 months of being exposed, they had broken up and were no longer speaking to each other. 10 months later, I'm raising Emma and Jake in a much more stable and authentic environment than they ever had when Michelle was prioritizing her affair over their needs. The divorce proceedings went exactly as I'd planned. Because I had documented Michelle's adultery and her neglect of the children's emotional needs, I was able to secure primary custody and ensure that Emma and Jake would have the stability and consistency they deserved. Michelle was required to pay child support and was granted limited visitation rights that gradually expanded as she demonstrated her commitment to putting the children's needs first. More importantly, the experience taught Emma and Jake valuable lessons about integrity, commitment, and the importance of keeping promises to the people who depend on you. Rather than being traumatized by their parents' divorce, they were relieved to be living in an environment where they could count on consistency and honesty. Emma's grades actually improved after the divorce, and she became more confident and outgoing once she no longer had to worry about her mother's unpredictable moods and availability. Jake's behavior problems disappeared, and he began excelling in both academics and athletics once he had the stable, supportive environment he needed to thrive. The most satisfying aspect of this experience wasn't the legal victories or the social consequences for Michelle and Kevin. It was the demonstration that children's welfare must always come first, even when it means making difficult decisions about marriage and family relationships. My investigation into Michelle's affair wasn't just about protecting myself from betrayal. It was about protecting Emma and Jake from the consequences of their mother's selfish choices. By taking control of the situation and prioritizing the children's needs, I was able to ensure that they would have the stability and security they deserved. Michelle thought she could exploit my trust and my love for our family to pursue her affair while expecting me to deal with the emotional and practical consequences of her choices. But she had fundamentally misunderstood what it means to be a devoted father and what lengths a parent will go to protect their children from harm. The family man she thought she was deceiving turned out to be someone who was capable of conducting a more thorough investigation than any private detective, and who was willing to sacrifice our marriage to protect our children's welfare and future happiness. In the end, Michelle learned that you can betray your spouse temporarily, but you can't abandon your responsibilities as a parent without facing serious consequences. The family she was willing to destroy for her affair was built on genuine love and commitment to the children's welfare, and when she chose to prioritize her selfish desires over their needs, she lost the right to disrupt their lives. The devoted father had delivered the perfect protection. A comprehensive plan that ensured the children's welfare came first, accomplished using Michelle's own selfishness and recklessness against her. Sometimes the most important victory isn't revenge. It's simply ensuring that the people you love most are protected from those who would harm them, even when those people are supposed to love them too.